In Tokyo's Katsushika ward, nestled within the quiet residential neighborhood of Shibamata, stands a traditional Japanese ikodate house. The Kobayashi family of 4 was living happily in this two-story home. The head of the household was Kenji Kobayashi, 49, who worked at a company. His wife Kyoko, 50, primarily managed household duties and occasionally took part-time work at a nearby beauty salon. The couple had 2 daughters. Their eldest daughter, Masako, 25, worked as a nurse at a local hospital. Their youngest, Junko, 21, was a senior college student, and she would become the central figure in a heartbreaking case that would shock all of Japan. Junko, the youngest daughter, was in her final year studying foreign languages at Sophia University, one of Japan's most prestigious private institutions. With her bright, sociable personality and outstanding academic performance, Junko had successfully passed the study abroad selection exam and secured a spot at the University of Seattle in the United States. She was eagerly anticipating her new journey abroad, with all paperwork, luggage, and plans meticulously prepared. However, when just 2 days remained before Junko was to leave Japan to begin her dream study abroad experience, a horrific tragedy occurred in her very own home. September 9th, 1996, Monday, a fateful day that would forever change the Kobayashi family's life. That day, Kenji Kobayashi was on a business trip to Fukushima, over 125 miles from home. Their eldest daughter, Masako, was also busy with her shift at the hospital. Only Junko and her mother remained at home in the quiet Shibamata house. Around 3:30 p.m., Kyoko had finished changing clothes and came downstairs to the first floor, preparing for her afternoon shift at the beauty salon. Just then, Junko, still in her pajamas, also came downstairs to use the restroom. Seeing her mother preparing to go out in the heavy rain falling outside, concern prompted her to ask, "It's raining so hard. Are you still planning to bike to work?" Kyoko explained that her shift had been scheduled in advance, and if she didn't show up, there would be no one to replace her. Despite the heavy rain, she thought she could manage if she tried hard enough on the road. Ultimately, she decided to go to work anyway. Since she knew Junko was still at home, Kyoko didn't lock the door when she left. At 4:35 p.m. that same day, the Tokyo Fire Department suddenly received an emergency call reporting a fire. The caller reported a house burning fiercely in the Shibamata area of Katsushika ward. Immediately upon receiving the report, the fire brigade departed for the scene. When the firefighters arrived, they witnessed a horrific sight. Flames were burning intensely, visible from a great distance. Thick black smoke continuously billowed up from the roof. Determining that people might still be trapped inside, some firefighters didn't hesitate to rush directly into the blaze. In the deepest bedroom on the second floor, they discovered a young woman. The firefighters immediately realized this was no ordinary fire. The scene before them was truly terrifying. The young woman lay on her side on the tatami mat, her mouth sealed tightly with tape, both hands bound, and both legs tied with pantyhose. Her entire body was covered with a summer blanket, with both sides of the blanket carefully tucked under her body. Blood was seeping from her neck area, and she was completely unconscious. The victim was immediately rushed to the nearest hospital in critical condition. However, despite the doctor's best efforts, they were unable to save her. The young woman had passed away forever. The victim was Junko Kobayashi, the 21-year-old college student. This was clearly an intentional arson, not a natural accident. The fire scale was so massive that 5 fire trucks had to be deployed to the scene. The firefighters had to battle continuously for over an hour, and it wasn't until 6 p.m. that they could completely extinguish the fierce flames. The 2-story house was almost completely destroyed, leaving only a bare skeletal frame. Fortunately, the fire was discovered and handled in time. Otherwise, the consequences could have spread to the entire surrounding residential area. Police arrived at the scene very early. They quickly established a perimeter, absolutely preventing unauthorized personnel from entering or leaving. However, due to the serious nature of the fire and the fact that the scene had just undergone firefighting with water, many important pieces of evidence had been destroyed or obscured, creating significant difficulties for the subsequent investigation. The victim, 21-year-old Junko, was not found in her own room but rather lying in her parents' bedroom on the second floor. The clothing on her body remained intact, a shirt on top and shorts on the bottom, with no signs indicating she had been sexually assaulted. However, something strange was pointed out by Kyoko, Junko's mother. When she left home for work that afternoon, her daughter was still wearing pajamas, not this outfit. Since only Junko was home at the time, her change of clothes might suggest that a visitor had come or she was preparing to go out to meet someone. The autopsy results showed that the fatal wound was located on the right side of Junko's neck, a deep knife wound that severed the main vein, causing her to die from excessive blood loss. Notably, there were defensive wounds on the victim's arm, proving that Junko had tried to resist before dying. Based on the characteristics of the wounds, forensics determined the murder weapon was a knife with a 3.1-inch blade and 1.2 inches wide. However, police were unable to find this knife at the scene. An important discovery from the autopsy results was that Junko's respiratory tract and lungs showed no traces of smoke or dust. This proved that the arson occurred after she died, not as the cause of death. Additionally, right at the threshold of the parents' bedroom on the second floor, police discovered Kenji's slippers. The fire department's investigation showed that the fire originated from two separate points. The first point was in the multi-purpose room next to the staircase on the first floor, while the second point was identified at the computer in the living room. Unfortunately, the computer was completely destroyed, making all data inside unrecoverable. Regarding missing property, only one commemorative 10,000 yen note, old version, from the first floor living room drawer was nowhere to be found. Notably, other valuable items in the house remained intact, especially the 140,000 yen, approximately $1,050, along with traveler's checks that Junko had prepared for her upcoming study abroad trip, all remained on the second floor, completely untouched. At the first floor crime scene area, police discovered an important clue: a matchbox. What's notable is that this matchbox was originally placed on the second floor, right next to the Buddhist altar in the Kobayashi couple's bedroom. From its original location and where it was found, investigators speculated that the perpetrator had used these matches for arson, and while hastily leaving the scene, accidentally dropped the matchbox at the entrance. Forensic analysis brought breakthrough discoveries. From this matchbox, experts successfully extracted a small amount of blood. Test results showed this was type A blood, an extremely important detail because no one in the Kobayashi family had this blood type. Therefore, it could be confirmed with near certainty that this was the perpetrator's blood. Not stopping there, scene specialists also discovered traces of cloth glove fibers on the matchbox surface. This showed that the perpetrator had carefully worn gloves throughout the crime process, explaining why no fingerprints of the culprit were found at the scene. The roll of tape used to bind Junko originated from a factory in Shizuoka Prefecture with specifications of 2 inches wide and 82 feet long, a common product that could easily be purchased at any convenience store or office supply shop across the country. Initially, police noticed this tape looked very similar to the tape Junko had used to pack luggage for her study abroad trip. However, after thorough examination, they discovered differences in specifications, confirming that this roll of tape was not taken from inside the house, but was an item the perpetrator had brought. Unfortunately, due to the widespread availability of this product nationwide, tracing it to a specific purchase point became nearly impossible. Through more detailed analysis, scene specialists discovered interesting clues on the tape: the presence of plant residue, sawdust, and most notably, 3 different types of dog hair. Since the Kobayashi family didn't keep dogs, these hairs very likely stuck to the tape from the perpetrator's body or clothing, opening new investigative directions about the culprit's identity and daily activities. Another notable technical detail was how the perpetrator tied Junko's legs with pantyhose. Instead of using ordinary binding methods, the culprit applied a quite special and professional knotting technique. This type of knot typically appears in 2 specific fields: gardening work to secure plant fencing, and in the traditional art of wearing kimono. This suggests the perpetrator might have had experience in the gardening industry or deep knowledge of traditional Japanese culture. Based on witness accounts, police established an accurate timeline of the crime. At 4:15 p.m., a passerby had walked past Junko's house without noticing any signs of fire. Just 20 minutes later, at 4:35, neighbors began discovering black smoke rising from the house and shortly after saw flames erupting. At 4:39, the fire report call was made to 119. The fire department responded quickly and fought continuously until 6 p.m. to completely extinguish the fire. Summarizing all clues and evidence, police determined the crime period occurred within 45 minutes, from 3:50 when Kyoko left home for work until 4:35 when neighbors discovered the fire. A factor that complicated the situation further was that this timing coincided with school dismissal hours in the area, making the streets crowded and creating many disruptive factors for the investigation. Just about 984 feet from Junko's house, Komedo Park became an important observation point with notable witness testimonies from locals. One local resident witnessed an unusual scene. From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., continuously for 6 hours, a man wearing white gloves was constantly loitering, walking back and forth around this park area. Another witness provided even more concerning information. During the time period from 4:30 to 4:40 p.m., precisely when neighbors discovered the fire, they saw a young man around 20 to 30 years old wearing a white shirt. Strangely, despite the heavy rain, this man wasn't carrying an umbrella, but was running directly in the rain, moving from the direction of the crime scene toward Shibamata Station, as if hastily leaving the area. Additionally, there was testimony about another figure who appeared before the crime occurred. The witness described seeing a man with suspicious behavior, continuously staring intently at the Kobayashi family's house. This person had clear physical characteristics, about 5 feet 3 inches tall, thin build, over 30 years old, wearing a yellow-brown raincoat on top and black pants on the bottom. Unusual events around the area didn't only occur on the day of the crime. 3 days earlier, during lunchtime, a middle-aged man around 40 years old had engaged in break-in behavior at several households in the nearby area. After being chased away by these families, he engaged in other suspicious activities, standing around in front of other people's doors and continuously fiddling with a lighter. Notably, around 1 p.m. that same day, someone else also witnessed this man appearing near the Kobayashi family's house. The situation became even more terrifying with testimony about what happened just 1 day before the crime. Around 5 a.m. early morning, a witness had seen a bizarre scene. A man was riding a bicycle near Junko's house while singing. Suddenly, this person shouted threatening words at an unclear target. "Stop joking around, I'll kill you." During the investigation, police also examined the possibility of involvement by people close to Junko. She had a boyfriend. However, after thorough examination, investigators confirmed that he was in the United States at the time of the crime, thus completely eliminating him from the suspect list. 10 days before the fateful crime, close friends had organized a warm farewell party to celebrate Junko's preparation to study in America. The party lasted until late at night. After the party ended, Junko had taken the train home by herself, feeling happy and excited. After getting off at Shibamata Station, Junko began her walking journey home through familiar streets. But after just a moment, she suddenly sensed a suspicious presence behind her. Turning around, she discovered a man was secretly following her. Fear immediately overwhelmed her, causing Junko to decide to change routes by turning through various street corners, hoping to escape the pursuer. When she realized that despite changing directions multiple times, the man still persistently followed her closely, Junko felt extremely panicked and decided to return to Shibamata Station to find a safe place. At the public phone booth, she called home with a trembling voice. "Mom, someone is following me. I've turned many corners, but he's still following me, so I had to come back to the station." Hearing her daughter's panicked voice, Kyoko immediately hurried out of the house to pick up Junko at the station. However, when she arrived, the mysterious pursuer had vanished without a trace. Afterward, perhaps wanting to avoid unnecessary worry, or thinking it was just a coincidental incident, both mother and daughter never mentioned this matter again. A few days after the stalking incident, Junko went with her mother to the dentist for a dental checkup. While waiting, she suddenly said to her mother, "If something happens to me, people could identify me through these dental treatment marks." Those seemingly joking words unexpectedly became a painful prophecy. For a long time after the crime, police forces deployed a large-scale investigation, not missing any clues. They thoroughly examined most people who could possibly be involved, from suspicious figures who had appeared around the area to Junko's social connections. However, despite their best efforts, the perpetrator's identity remained a mystery. As time passed, clues gradually became faint, the investigation reached a dead end, and the Shibamata case officially joined the list of unsolved mysteries. In 2014, when forensic science had made tremendous advances, police decided to apply the most advanced DNA technology to reanalyze evidence samples from the scene. The results brought new hope. From the summer blanket that had covered Junko, experts successfully extracted DNA from a man. More importantly, after cross-comparison, they confirmed this DNA completely matched the DNA from the blood sample on the matchbox found at the scene, proving both belonged to the same person. September 2018, exactly 22 years after the Shibamata tragedy, this case once again became the center of public attention when media outlets decided to report on it again. Police also took this opportunity to release additional detailed information to call for community support. 3 years later, in August 2021, a completely new suspect composite sketch was released based on valuable testimony from a female witness. This woman was 21 years old at the time of the crime and lived about 1.1 miles from Junko's house. On the fateful afternoon, while biking to a friend's house at an intersection just 66 feet from the Kobayashi family's home, she noticed a man with suspicious behavior. According to her description, this person was modestly tall, at about 4 feet 11 inches to 5 feet 3 inches. Thin build, wearing a yellow jacket paired with black pants, aged 50 to 60, and carrying a black umbrella. To accelerate the investigation's progress, police decided to offer a massive reward of up to 8 million yen, approximately $60,000, a significant amount, for anyone who could provide useful information to help solve the case. Among the hypotheses put forward by experts, one theory particularly attracted attention related to Junko's study abroad plans. Criminal psychologist Akira Yamada developed a compelling viewpoint. He believed that choosing the timing of just 2 days before Junko's departure for America was absolutely not a random coincidence but a deliberate decision. According to his hypothesis, the perpetrator was a man who had secretly harbored unrequited feelings for Junko for a long time. What's notable is that both Junko and those around her were completely unaware of the existence of these secret feelings. Afraid of potential rejection, this person never dared express his feelings directly, instead choosing the path of secretly stalking and observing Junko from afar. The mysterious man who had followed Junko near Shibamata Station on the night of the farewell party was the perpetrator of this crime. When learning that Junko was about to study abroad in America, and knowing she had a boyfriend in America, this man knew Junko wouldn't return to Japan for a long time. He clearly knew that after this, he would never see Junko again. He thought, rather than let someone else take her away, it would be better to kill her himself. That way no one could have her. Based on the synthesis of all evidence and clues, experts put forward several reasonable hypotheses about the motive and identity of the perpetrator. The choice of timing for the crime, Monday afternoon, after 4 p.m., right during peak school dismissal hours, seemed irrational at first glance because it was easy to be discovered. Junko's house was located right next to the main road, where passers-by could easily observe all activities coming and going. However, precisely because the crime time was extremely brief and efficient, this showed the perpetrator had planned very thoroughly, calculating every detail meticulously, absolutely not an impulsive or random act. The discovery of Kenji Kobayashi's slippers at the threshold of the second-floor bedroom was important evidence. This detail strongly suggested that the perpetrator was someone Junko knew and trusted. Perhaps Junko had proactively invited this person into the house, even thoughtfully taking her father's slippers for the guest to use. When Junko's body was discovered with her face covered by a blanket, this revealed the complex psychological aspect of the culprit. The act of covering the victim's face usually stems from feelings of remorse, inability to face the consequences of one's actions. This is a typical manifestation when the perpetrator and victim have an acquainted relationship, when the killer cannot bear to see the face of the person they just murdered. The choice of timing just 2 days before Junko's study abroad trip cannot be coincidental. This is the most important key to understanding the crime's motive. If the perpetrator didn't act quickly, he would miss the opportunity because Junko would leave Japan. The computer in the first-floor living room played a crucial role in understanding the perpetrator's motive. This was not only a device Junko frequently used, but also became one of the 2 main ignition points of the crime. The complete destruction of the computer beyond recovery showed this was not coincidental. It's very likely the computer contained sensitive information that could lead to the perpetrator's identity, possibly emails, chat history, or other data that the culprit felt needed to be destroyed at all costs. Analysis of the ignition points revealed the perpetrator's sophisticated calculation. Although Junko's body was in the parents' bedroom on the 2nd floor, the culprit didn't choose to start the fire there to erase traces. Instead, he selected 2 points on the 1st floor, the multi-purpose room on the 1st floor, farthest from the main crime scene, and the computer area. The reason for this strategy could be the 2nd floor bedroom was near the street side, and if fire was started there during peak student dismissal hours, the risk of being discovered too early would be very high. Moreover, fire from the 1st floor would spread more widely and destroy the entire house more effectively, while also creating precious time for the perpetrator to escape. Based on all evidence, the scenario can be reconstructed as follows. Junko's upcoming study abroad plans were the trigger that activated this entire tragedy. The perpetrator, who had perhaps been secretly stalking Junko for a long time, realized that time was running out. He had some kind of relationship with Junko, possibly through volunteer activities, studies, or other social connections, leading to conflicts or unrequited feelings that weren't reciprocated. From there, he began systematic stalking behavior, scouting the terrain around the Kobayashi family's house, and planning in detail for his final action. The fateful farewell party night became the starting point for the tragic chain of events. The mysterious man who followed Junko from Shibamata Station home was the perpetrator who had been secretly observing her for a long time. When discovered by Junko and forced to retreat, he realized he had left traces. In the following days, a young woman's keen instincts helped Junko sense the abnormality in the atmosphere around her. This is why, during the dental visit, she uttered those prophetic words about identification through dental treatment marks. Through his surveillance time, the perpetrator had learned the Kobayashi family's living habits like the back of his hand. He knew exactly each member's schedule. Kenji frequently traveled for business, Masako had shifts at the hospital, Kyoko worked part-time at the beauty salon in the afternoons. September 9th was chosen not by chance. It was the day when all factors were most favorable. Father on a business trip to Fukushima, older sister at work, and just needing to wait until afternoon when mother left for work, Junko would be home alone. On the fateful afternoon, the perpetrator patiently loitered around the area, waiting for the perfect opportunity. When he saw Kyoko leave the house on her bicycle in the heavy rain, he knew the moment had arrived. A notable detail in the plan was his deliberate choice not to bring an umbrella, a sophisticated psychological tactic. When ringing the doorbell while soaked from rain, he created the image of a pitiful person needing help. Junko, with the characteristic kindness of youth when seeing an acquaintance suffering in the heavy rain, didn't hesitate to open the door to welcome the guest inside. The perpetrator entered the house wearing Junko's father's slippers. At this point, the perpetrator's clothes were wet, so he expressed wanting to change clothes. Therefore, Junko went up to the 2nd floor parents' bedroom, wanting to find her father's clothes. Unexpectedly, the perpetrator followed Junko into the bedroom. Since the bedroom had tatami, the perpetrator habitually left his slippers at the entrance before entering. While Junko was concentrating on searching for clothes in the wardrobe, the perpetrator launched a surprise attack. Although Junko tried to resist, as evidenced by the defensive wounds on her arms, the difference in physical strength and the element of surprise made it impossible for her to defend herself effectively. After committing the criminal act, the perpetrator realized he needed to erase traces. The discovery of the matchbox next to the Buddhist altar sparked his idea to burn the scene. To ensure the plan wouldn't be disrupted, he used the tape he had brought beforehand to seal Junko's mouth, bind her hands, then tie her legs as well. Facing Junko, whom he knew, the perpetrator chose to use a blanket to cover her head to reduce the feeling of remorse in his heart. Due to Junko's position in the parents' bedroom, this location was close to the street side. If fire was started here, and now being school dismissal time, it would very quickly be discovered by people, and the fire would have difficulty spreading to the first floor, thereby burning down the entire house. The perpetrator both wanted to buy more escape time for himself and wanted to burn down the entire house as much as possible. He chose the room on the first floor farthest from the street. Then he took matches and went downstairs to the first floor, starting a fire in a suitable room. When reaching the Genkin preparing to go outside, he saw a computer in the living room. He thought the computer might contain information that could expose his identity, so he also burned the computer in the living room. Before leaving the house, he casually threw the matchbox there. Regarding the missing commemorative 10,000 yen note, old version, it might have been used by the perpetrator for burning or burned to ash during the fire, rather than being taken by the perpetrator. It's said that when the fire department arrived, the main door of the house was locked, but the mother said she didn't lock the door when leaving for work. Regarding this point, there could be multiple causes. Junko might have locked it afterward, the perpetrator might have locked it before committing the crime, or the perpetrator might have somehow obtained Junko's house key. The Shibamata case is still waiting for its final answer, and somewhere the culprit is still living in the shadows, carrying the secret of having killed a talented young woman and shattered an entire family's dreams. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share in the comments below. Thank you for following along, and see you in the next videos.